Hi everybody. One of the really great things that's happening right now is a lot of people are taking the time to learn how to cook. More families are cooking at home right now, which is really awesome. And learning how to cook is a skill that you can use every day throughout the rest of your life. But if you really want to be a good cook, you have to start by learning the basics. And so we're going to go over a few basics today related to abbreviations that they use in recipes, and then how to properly measure certain things, dry ingredients, liquid ingredients, and what equipment to use. So let's look at our resources that we're going to be using today. There is a really great resource called 4-H Fun with Foods Level 1 from Utah State University. It is free to be downloaded, and the very first activity talks about all of the basics that we're going to be going over today. And then I have a couple of resources from the Missouri 4-H webpage that are Skillathon resources. One of them is practicing measuring liquid ingredients, and the other one is measuring dry ingredients. And these will really help you get good at measuring and get comfortable with all of the tools that you have to use. So let's take a look at some of the abbreviations that are commonly used in recipes. And remember, a recipe is just a step-by-step guide. There's nothing really magical about a recipe. You just put those ingredients together when they say to do it and how they say to do it in the recipe and follow those directions. But they do use a lot of different abbreviations. So a small t or a TSP is an abbreviation for a teaspoon. A capital T or a TBSP is an abbreviation for a tablespoon. C means cup, PT means pint, QT means quart, OZ is an abbreviation for ounces, LB is an abbreviation for pound, DOZ is an abbreviation for dozen, MIN is an abbreviation for minutes, and HR is an abbreviation for hour. And depending on your recipe, some or all of these abbreviations might be used. Now, if you're using someone's recipe that is handed down in your family, where it's handwritten, you might need a little help. I know some of the handwriting in our family recipes, you have to decode a little bit their handwriting, but these are the common abbreviations that are used in recipes. So if you're going to be really good at cooking something, you want to start maybe with one of your favorite food items to prepare. And so a lot of times that might be cookies or something for a snack. And so you're going to want to be able to measure dry ingredients. So these are actually measuring cups for dry ingredients. And they usually will come as a set. These came as 4 to a set, starting with the smallest, which is 1/4 cup, 1/3 cup, 1/2 cup, and 1 cup. And one thing I want you to notice about these compared to what I'm going to show you are the liquid measures is that these have straight sides and a very flat top. Because what you will do, and I will demonstrate this for you, is once you put your ingredient in here, you're going to want to take something and you're going to want to level it off over the top so that you get the exact amount that your recipe calls for. So that's for things like granulated sugar, which is just regular sugar, flour, things like that in large quantities that are dry, okay? It's also for brown sugar, but there's a different technique for brown sugar, and I will demonstrate that for you. Liquid ingredient measuring cups typically have sloped sides and a pour spout. And this one just happens to be glass. Many times they're glass or clear plastic because you need to be able to see through this so that you can accurately measure your liquid ingredients. And so not only does this have a 2 cup, and this is the max. So you'll notice how instead of coming up all the way to the top, like my dry measure does, the liquid measure leaves room at the top so that you don't spill while you're pouring your liquid into your mixing bowl, okay? So it has the cup measurement. It also has an ounce measurement right here in the middle. And then on this side, mine actually has milliliters as well. Yours may or may not have those, but that, depending on the recipe that you're using, you might have your quantities listed in ounces. So you would use this in the center, or cups. And over here we have the 1/4 and 1/2 cups, and over here we have the 1/3, 1/3 cups. Okay, so that's a liquid measure. Then for very small quantities, for both liquid and dry, we have measuring spoons. Okay, these spoons also came as a set. We have 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon, 1/2 teaspoon, and 1/4 teaspoon. Now you will have some sets that will even go down to 1/8, and some recipes do call for that tiny amount of a spice usually. And so these can be used for either liquid or dry, and it's for things that require smaller amounts. Now, one of the great items in this Utah State curriculum is there are some measuring tips that show you 3 teaspoons also means it's 1 tablespoon. So let's say, for example, you're in the middle of cooking something, your teaspoon is already dirty, you've used it for something, you don't want to take time to wash it, and you know that 3 teaspoons is the same as a tablespoon, then you can interchange those. There are some other great conversions here as well. There are some apps that do the same thing. This is just a really handy reference chart for you. Okay, so let's talk about the proper way to measure flour is the ingredient that we're going to start with. So I have my bag of flour here, and I want to measure 1/2 cup of flour. And so I'm not going to do that over my bowl. I'm going to do that over a plate. Now, flour can be tricky. You really want to stir it up. That helps to loosen it up. And if there is any packing that's taken place, you take care of that, because you do not want your flour packed. That can give you too much flour in your recipe. So you want to stir it up, and then holding it over your plate, you want to go ahead and spoon that into your measuring cup. Now you have the plate in case you get a little bit messy. And I'm kind of a messy cook, so I might have a little bit of that. And I'm going to put a little bit of extra on there because I want to show you what we do next. Then we're going to take the straight edge of a spatula or a knife, and we're just going to push that across. So we make sure that we have the exact amount that our recipe calls for. It's right up at the top. So then we're ready for our flour to go into our recipe. But what happens when we have granulated sugar? Let's do granulated sugar. So sugar, the trick with it is it can sometimes be clumpy. So we want to be sure that we get all the clumps out. And again, you're going to use the same technique after you get the clumps out. You can go ahead, depending on the size of your measuring cup, you can go ahead and just dip it right in there if it's clean. Or you can take your spoon and you can spoon it out. Now if you dip it in there, you're still going to want to take your spatula and you're going to want to go over a clean plate. And you're going to want to make sure that you have the exact amount, again, that your recipe calls for. Now I want to show you the difference between regular granulated sugar and brown sugar. So brown sugar, you can even feel it. It packs, okay? And so most recipes will tell you that you want your brown sugar to be packed. You will actually get more brown sugar that way. So again, you can actually put your measuring cup in there But then you want to take the back of a spoon or something and you want to press it down and pack it into your measuring cup. Now that gives me a little bit of room. So I'm going to add just a little bit more, and then I'm going to pack that in there. And again, I want to make sure that that's level. But I got just a little bit more flour or a little bit more brown sugar because I packed it compared to if I had just put it in there like I did the regular granulated sugar. Okay, so that's kind of the story on our dry ingredients. What about our liquid ingredients? Well, obviously we want to use our liquid measure. I have some vegetable oil here that I'm going to measure 1/4 cup. Now, normally I would not use this large of a measuring cup for, it's a 2-cup measure and I'm just using it for 1/4 cup. But I want you all to be able to see the size of the cup and where those measurements are. And my 1/4 cup is all the way down at the bottom. So I need to be eye level with my measuring cup to make sure that I have the proper amount. So I'm going to go ahead and put in what I think is a 1/4 cup. And from this view, it looks like a 1/4 cup. But when I get down eye level, guess what? I'm not there yet. So you want to be eye level with your measuring cup. And I need just a little bit more. And that is my 1/4 cup. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, you could just hold it up. If you can keep it perfectly level, that's fine. I don't have that kind of confidence. So I like to put it on a flat surface and then get down eye level to make sure that I have measured the exact amount that my recipe calls for. Now, when it comes to smaller quantities, like this cocoa generally would be a smaller quantity in your recipe, you're going to use your measuring spoons. And your spoons, again, you want it to be, if it's a dry ingredient, level right across the top. So you're going to go in there and see how when I bring it up, I have a little bit extra there. So I need to take a clean spatula and I need to scrape that right across the top to make sure that I am only getting the amount that my recipe calls for. So that really is the basics of measuring. Now there are some other ingredients like butter and shortening that you would put into a measuring cup like this. Use a spoon and then you would use a spatula to get that out. Again, you would take your straight edge, make sure that it's completely level. And all of those activities are here in this curriculum for you to practice in the very first lesson, and then there are a couple of recipes that you can use to try that with. Then if you really want to practice your measuring your dry ingredients and your liquid ingredients, remember our 2 skillathon activities that are on our Missouri 4-H State webpage. So that's really it. That's the basics of getting started with cooking. And I hope that you guys have a great time with this and really learn a lot. Learning how to cook is something that you will absolutely use for the rest of your life. So have a great day.